Picture a seashore where the Red Sea blue tapers away to an empty, dusty plateau, and where 2 millennia ago a constant tread of feet and hoof between ship and caravan carried round the wonders of the world. Picture Roman merchants, Arabian sailors, and African trade converging at one emporium, an emporium where ivory, frankincense, hide of exotic beasts, and slaves were besieged by the holds of alien ships, and textiles, glass, and metals flowing the other way. That was Adulis, the Red Sea port which made the kingdom of Aksum more than a highland kingdom, but a hub in an international system which connected Rome, Arabia, India, and the heartland of Africa. Adulis was more than just a port, it was a cultural confluence where religious traditions, coins, and languages were exchanged as internationally as goods. Its ruins today, located at present-day Zula in Erythraea, still bear the stamp of this long-distance trade. Pieces of stone foundations, pottery, and the spectral street layout speak of cosmopolitan living which once existed on the water's edge. To know Adulis is to understand how ancient globalization worked, not as the neat one-strand storybooks occasionally tell, but as a complex, competitive, and entrepreneurial multiplicity of networks catering to demand for luxury and capital in order to carry goods across seas and deserts. This port put Aksum irreversibly into league towards the end of antiquity as the gateway to the plateau, and thereby, and because of its strategic position and Aksum's control of the land roads, it is why it continues to keep appearing in histories and archaeologies. When you open the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, a sea pilot written by a Greek-speaking merchant in the 1st century CE, Adulis is written about in plain business terms. The Periplus is comprised of portsmen, soon winds, commodities, and seasons to avoid sailing, and it places Adulis firmly on the calendar of those who sailed along the Indian Ocean and Red Sea routes. The Periplus is open about what came and went. The chief exports were ivory, rhinoceros horn, tortoiseshell slaves, and perfumy resins, and gold imports included assorted cloth, glass, metalware, and wines. The Periplus hints also at multiculturalism of the harbor, foreign traders, harbor officials, and middlemen who organized storage, tribute, and transportation through the treacherous sea climate. But the Periplus is more than an inventory to shop. It's evidence that at least since the 1st century CE, there was solid sea law, the winds, patterns, the decent anchorages were the markets that enabled foreign merchants to exchange with one another. That's what's key to realize. Trade wasn't intermittent or random or hit or miss, it was routinized, knowledge turned into practice season after season. The occurrence of the mention of Adulis by a Mediterranean text and the manner any able trader would seek it out is evidence of the incorporation of the port into a wider economic system. Archaeology gives us texture when the texts are laconic. Excavations on the site belonging to Adulis have provided occupation levels, imported pottery, Roman and Byzantine currency, glass beads, amphora sherds, and other materials that place the site in Mediterranean, Arabian, and Indian spheres. The material record is one of continuity and transformation. The upper phases bear witness to pre-Aksumite and perhaps South Arabian contacts, and lower levels exhibit Aksumite urbanism and building forms reflecting wider Mediterranean forms. Pottery waves and numismatic finds add to a chronology. Adulis prospered in the early century CE up to early medieval decades, when a seaport via which inland Aksumite elites could access foreign luxuries and markets. Archaeologists also uncovered evidence of specialized installations, warehouses, possible quays, and storage environments that imply old established commercial enterprise rather than beach trade ad hoc. But the site is palimpsest too. Serial abandonment of the site, coastal change, and several centuries of varying trade patterns have left archaeologists with an aggregate stratigraphy to unpick and ephemeral moments of trade to untangle from long-lasting institutions. Extended term study of shell middens, foreign goods, and fauna has told us everything about diet craft and the scale of demand for certain goods, and provides us with a community both local and highly networked. But Adulis was not merely about merchandise, it was about identity and ideas. In recent digs, researchers have found the ruins of early Christian churches and material proofs of religious transformation, mosaics, architectural style, and liturgical practice-related items that show Adulis played a part in spreading Christianity in the Horn of Africa. This religious conversion was not singular. Conversion was concurrent with commercial exchange to the Mediterranean world, whose Christian population and Byzantine presence increased in late antiquity. The position of Christian architecture on an emporium along the seashore is reflective of the cosmopolitan social life of the port city, visiting merchants, resident foreign communities, and native converts, all functioning in a manner that allowed nascent religious forms to take root. But conversion was uncoordinated, and complex archaeology discovers patches of continuity and intermixture of practice, and not a single point of mass transformation. Most dramatically of all is the manner in which religious and economic networks reinforced one another. Christian expansion eastward went hand in hand with and made use of the very sea trade network that carried ivory and incense, and religion could be employed to found commercial relations as readily as commerce introduced new beliefs and practices into interior societies. These findings redefine oversimplified narratives. Adulis was not so much an idle terminus passively absorbing concepts from hegemonic neighbors, but a discerning participant in remaking the Horn's cultural geography. All successful cities decay, and Adulis is no exception. A complex blend of shifting winds and commerce expanding imperatives at sea, ascending and declining regimes, and climatic change gradually wore down the port's primacy. By the early medieval centuries, Adulis' trade routes redirected political domination of Aksum weakened, and other roads and ports gained prominence, developments that cumulatively reduced the amount and centrality of Adulis. But the story does not end in abandonment. Since 19th century adventurers, colonial functionaries, and later professional archaeologists came to map and excavate the site, collecting inscriptions, coins, and fragmentary buildings that would assemble Adulis' life history. Recent initiative by Erythraean and outside actors has attempted to document, preserve, and interpret the remains while facing preservation, access, and geopolitics. Adulis stands today at the intersection of scholarly interest and national pride. It is crucial evidence for how pre-modern African polities engage the world in general, and it pushes us to reconsider models of direction of influence, not just civilization from the Mediterranean to the interior, but an interactive system of give and take. Adulis' past matters more than mere local interest. It makes our vision of late antiquity complicated and recalls that globalization has deep ancient foundations sown by human ingenuity, the summer breezes, and the eternal hunger for the foreign. Adopt the long view. Adulis is a mirror. It sheds light on the dreams of Aksumite kings and merchants, the curiosity of the Mediterranean explorers, the monsoon sailors and caravan chief cycles, and the constant push of coastal folk who turn geography into opportunity. Its past is a challenge to all conceptions of antiquity in which the Roman world occupies its isolation at the center. Instead, the Red Sea corridor pulsates and resounds with energy and intent, and places like Adulis were entrepreneurial, dynamic, and aggressive powers in forging a unified ancient world. For readers, students, and archaeologists, Adulis defies simple polarities, local and foreign, periphery and center, by insisting that the ancient world functioned in webs where influence traveled in more than one direction. Now, as the archaeologists dig on sought finds and debate interpretations, Adulis silently enriches the history of exchange, religion, and identity in the Horn of Africa, and encourages us to pay close attention to what its shattered walls and disparate shards still have to tell us.